Tonight on News 5 Live, Jacob Kingston presents text messages in court that Minister John Saldivar agreed to go to Miami in February 2014 to pick up $50,000. Patt is sworn in as the new Deputy Prime Minister of Belize. Scotiabank Belize terminates political accounts. Javon Moody was arraigned on a single charge of murder in the Belmopan Magistrates Court. And the Department of Environment and the Belize Port Authority launched an investigation into the anchor grounding near Long Key. Details of these stories and more coming up in tonight's newscast.
In light
Welcome to News 5 Live for Tuesday, February 11th. I am Marlene Cuellar. At News Time tonight, the government and the new leader of the UDP, John Saldivar, have remained mum about the incriminating revelations coming out from a court in Utah in a trial that has captivated the nation. A press conference announced for this Wednesday by the UDP has been called off as Saldivar comes under fire and the political fortunes spirals downward. The PUP, however, will have its say on Wednesday. As Cabinet met in Belmopan, in the Utah court today, the jury heard more salacious and damning testimony and was provided with text messages from Jacob Kingston about Lev Derman and the cash given to Saldivar. Here is that report.
In the Salt Lake City Court, there were further revelations in respect of John Saldivar, the freshly minted leader of the UDP. Still on the witness stand is Jacob Kingston, Kingston has already testified that he knew Saldivar was getting bundles of cash from accused fraudster Lev Derman. Today, he proffered specific details. Kingston testified that he had contact with John Saldivar at the end of 2014 and early 2015. He said, quote, "I met with John and Lev in 2014 and we discussed some of his campaign. He told us that he had 3 to 4 individuals as part of his party and their intent to be re-elected, and the conversation led to cash or money that was needed for the re-election campaign," unquote. Kingston told the jury that on February 11, 2014, Saldivar texted him to ask for money. These text messages were presented in court. At first, Kingston didn't know who it was, but Saldivar identified himself. Kingston testified that Saldivar said he was nervous that Derman would not make good on his promises to him because he had not heard back from him and was not paying the $25,000 payment a month, which he said he would. One of the text messages from Saldivar read, quote, "Really need the February tranche," unquote. Kingston said that he offered to wire him the money, but Saldivar refused, saying that he thought a wire was a bad idea. Kingston then offered to send $50,000 with an associate to Miami if Saldivar could meet him there. Saldivar agreed to this, writing back, quote, "Okay, I will head to Miami Thursday," unquote. Kingston told the court that he was under the impression that Saldivar had an arrangement in which he was to receive monthly contributions of $25,000 to support his campaign. The prosecutor then changed his line of questioning to the details of the investigation. Kingston later testified that he traveled to Belize in April 2015 to meet with Derman and discuss their plan to transfer millions of dollars they received from a U.S. tax return to Turkish bank accounts. Upon his return from this trip, he testified that border agents seized his phone in San Diego and scanned them, which is how the U.S. government gained possession of the text messages presented in the court. Kingston testified that afterward, he had his old phone destroyed and acquired a new one so he could continue to communicate with Derman. This afternoon, Kingston told the jury that he gave his interests to a warehouse in Belize to Derman as collateral for a lawsuit that was filed to make it appear as though the two were enemies. Before wrapping up the day, both sides were fighting over the use of more text messages and photos as evidence.
As recent as Sunday, after his election, Saldivar continued to deflect the allegations of any wrongdoing. The trial continues tomorrow. Early this morning, a new photograph surfaced in the ongoing saga involving the new UDP leader, John Saldivar. Saldivar's name has been ringing in the Salt Lake court, where Lev Derman is being accused of defrauding as much as $510 million from the U.S. government in fuel tax credit. This new photo shows Mayor Khalid Belisle, Lev Derman, John Saldivar, and Ramon Desage. A fifth person remains unidentified. It is not known when and where it was taken, but it speaks volumes of the company that Saldivar and Belisle are keeping. Desage is a businessman from Las Vegas, where Lev Derman was seeking an honorary council appointment. That appointment, according to Foreign Minister Wilfred Elrington, was being pushed by Saldivar, but it was turned down twice by the U.S. Now, in September 2019, Desage pleaded guilty to his role in a tax fraud scheme and was sentenced to 3 years in prison. The trial judge also ordered Desage to pay $28.2 million in restitution to the IRS, in addition to his prison sentence. Desage admitted that from January 2006 to October 2010, he conspired with his bookkeeper and tax preparer in a $28 million tax fraud conspiracy. The bookkeeper was to appear in court this month. As you know, Lev Derman is also on trial for tax fraud, but to a much larger scale. The question in everyone's mind is why these unsavory characters are associating with Saldivar and the Belmopan mayor, who has already had to explain a previous photo in which he is posing with Derman along with Saldivar's associates in front of a private plane. There are two elected leaders of the UDP following Sunday's convention when John Saldivar took the oath as party leader. Today, the party sent out a release asserting that Prime Minister Dean Barrow continues to lead the party. A release points to the party's constitution, which cites that whenever the party leader is serving the final term permitted, there shall be a session of the National Convention to elect a new party leader. The party leader so elected shall not assume office until the end of the term of office of the outgoing party leader or unless the outgoing party leader resigns. It states that Barrow has not resigned and his term of office only ends when he advises the Governor-General to dissolve Parliament. In this case, Saldivar is presently the party leader-elect. On whether the PM will step down, the UDP states that according to the Belize Constitution, the Prime Minister shall be a member of the House of Representatives who is the leader of the political party which commands the support of the majority of the members of the House. It states that the Governor-General has not been informed of any change in the office and there is no such change. After garnering the most votes from delegates during the National Party Convention on Sunday to become the new deputy leader of the UDP, Corozal North Area Representative and Minister of Natural Resources Patt has been sworn in as Deputy Prime Minister, which means that he sits next to the PM in the House. The brief ceremony was held this afternoon at the Belize House in Belmopan, where the oath of office was administered by Governor-General Sir Colville Young. Minister Patt succeeds former Deputy Prime Minister Patrick Faber, who demitted office on Monday afternoon following a stunning loss to the besieged Belmopan Area Representative John Saldivar a day earlier. While Saldivar has been voted in as the UDP's leader-in-waiting, Patt, as his running mate, has since been installed to the second highest political office in government.
I, Patt, do swear that I will bear true faith and allegiance to Belize and will uphold the Constitution and the law, and that I will conscientiously, impartially, and to the best of my ability discharge my duties as Deputy Prime Minister and do right to all manner of people without fear or favor. It's very emotional. Really, I think when we started our political career, it was a challenging one, but we always believe in service to the people, and for me, the best way you can invite anybody to support you is by producing results. And so what you would see is that across the 2 terms that I have served in the Corozal North constituency, we have always believed in that, and that is one of the reasons that we have been able to garner much support. And so that is the same insight that we brought into the National Party, and with that token, as I indicated, I submitted my name to be the first deputy leader for party, and we went on the campaign trail basically with the same ideology that we wanted to deliver services. And so we got the support from our party, and so we're here this afternoon, now in the capacity of Deputy Prime Minister of this country, of course, with the full knowledge and understanding that we have a challenge ahead, and we are committed to that.
Speak if you can now, as a Deputy Prime Minister. You have to take over when the Prime Minister travels, that sort of thing. But we know that the UDP right now is in a fluid state. The power relationships can change very suddenly and surprisingly. It's an odd situation you find yourself in where you have more political power than the party leader, John Saldivar. As a Deputy Prime Minister, you're the second in charge of the country.
I will tell you that I have always believed in teamwork, and as I indicated today, this is just formality, it's just protocol. I don't intend on being overpowered by anybody, nor do I intend to overpower anybody. I have always believed in the spirit of teamwork, and believe you me, when Prime Minister Barrow leaves the country, he leaves everything in order so that whenever we assume responsibility, it's because we have a full knowledge that everything is in place.
Ahead of Patt's swearing in this afternoon, we caught up with him following today's cabinet meeting, the first gathering of the Barrow administration since the UDP convention on Sunday. We quizzed the Minister of Natural Resources on his thoughts about the Lev Derman scandal in the context of newly elected party leader John Saldivar being the subject of much public outrage. Patt admits that the optics is bad and worrisome to the United Democratic Party, and alluded to a press conference that was initially scheduled for Wednesday. While that media brief has since been postponed until further notice, here's what Patt shared with us.
Your new party leader, however, remains under fire. How do you feel as a member of that slate and as someone who's prepared to work with him closely?
As I indicated, it is of concern what is happening, I will have to admit. But I think that John will provide a press conference tomorrow, and so if any questions might arise, then I think that is the occasion for us to answer that.
Would you agree that it's politically risky, to say the least, to go into a general election with John Saldivar as your leader because of all these things that are being said in the Utah courtroom? Now they're saying that a February 11th text exchange, he accepted, he said that I need X amount of money, $50,000.
Well, I haven't seen any text messages, Jules, and until then I can just see that, everything is on a speculation, and, there is a circus in all of this. Let us wait it out and see what exactly actually transpires after this.
But you will see the text in a few hours. I mean...
Until then, I will be able to tell you.
Well, the latest developments from Jacob Kingston's testimony earlier today, during which he provided the court with text messages of John Saldivar requesting $50,000 prompt an abrupt change within the upper echelon of the United Democratic Party. According to Patt, he does not envisage any immediate changes following today's testimony.
Is it unforeseeable that you may have to, for whatever period, assume the leadership of the UDP?
At this point in time, I think it's too early for any assumption. That is your belief, Jules. I would respect that. But as I indicated, whatever transpires from now to the near future, it is to be determined by what evidence is presented. I don't foresee, as we speak, any change in terms of the hierarchy position that we have within our party. Prime Minister has indicated as well that he will not take any action unless something of material comes out from what is being presented in the courts in Utah.
Remember John McAfee? He is the eccentric U.S. antivirus software pioneer with a sordid history. Among other things, McAfee was a person of interest in the 2012 murder of his neighbor in San Pedro, another U.S. national, Gregory Fall. In that same year, his property in Orange Walk was raided by the GSU. McAfee claimed the raid was in retribution for his refusal to be extorted by the government. He always claimed corruption in high places of government and always referenced Saldivar. Those claims were dismissed. But after the Fall murder, he managed to elude the long arms of the law and fled to Guatemala, where he was apprehended and eventually sent back to the U.S., where he continues to get attention. The year 2012 is featuring prominently in court proceedings in Utah for all sorts of things. And as the story involving John Saldivar picks up new legs, we found a telling online video by McAfee made years ago in 2014. It is a private message to his friends who he says are involved in a treasure hunt. What that means is difficult to tell, but among those he addresses in the video are Minister John Saldivar, Lev Termenzian, who has Belizean nationality, and Gaspar Vega. McAfee ends the video directly addressing and taunting Saldivar.
This is a message to all of my friends out there that I mentioned in the earlier part of this message, especially to John Saldivar. I'm seriously offended that you've been sending these little old ladies. I expect some real men next time. So come get some.
Coming up, Minister Michael Finnegan reacts to the closure of UDP mess-up account by Scotiabank. And in the courts, Javon Moody is arraigned for the murder of his girlfriend. Earlier today, a letter from the Scotiabank to Mesopotamia Area Representative Michael Finnegan went into wide circulation on social media since the 60-day notice concerned the termination of his constituency's account. The letter, dated January 20th, was written by branch manager Erwin Arthurs and informs Finnegan that, quote, Scotiabank has undertaken a strategic review of its portfolio of accounts and, as a result, has decided that we will no longer be able to serve your account based on Scotiabank's internal policy, unquote. The letter sparked all kinds of speculation on Facebook, and we sought out the Minister of Housing after today's cabinet meeting to get a response. According to Finnegan, notice has been given to all political parties with accounts at Scotiabank that the financial institution is no longer willing to serve them.
There is a letter in circulation from the Scotiabank in which it has effectively...
The Facebook posting, as I was told, is all of them, they are misleading. The bank sent a letter simply saying that they are not, the manager spoke to me, which was Mr. Arthurs and Mr. Neal, that they were no more interested in any political accounts held at the bank. The account at Scotiabank is not Michael Finnegan's account. It's UDP Mesopotamia account. And they are not interested in any political account. They have sent the letter to UDP Port Loyola, UDP Queen Square, UDP Albert, UDP this, UDP that. And Mr. Arthurs told me they are doing the same thing to the political accounts that is held by divisions or the People's United Party. It has nothing to do that is on Facebook. And I will sue all the blabbermouth, especially the reporter. They should have known better and twist things the way they want to twist it.
According to Port Loyola Area Representative Anthony Boots Martinez, he too received a letter from Scotiabank late in 2019 informing him of the pending termination of his constituency account. He says that no more than $4,000 at any given time was deposited or withdrawn from that account prior to its closure.
Sometime last year, November, I was informed by the bank that the internal policy of the bank have, in regards to their policy, they will close all political accounts. So no, as far as I understand, they said to me they will not be having no political accounts. It don't really matter where, which party. So that is their justification. I say it's internal policy.
In terms of transaction to your constituency accounts, are we talking about the movement of significant sums of money? What were we looking at the point when yours was closed?
Basically 4,000 and out, and when mine was closed, I had about $25 or something, $25 and some cents in there. So it really matter. Yes.
It's separate from anything that has to do with one's private account in this particular case, correct?
Private account. Both my constituency and private account is at Scotiabank, and I maintain my private account.
Javon Moody says that he is being framed for a murder he didn't commit. Moody, as we reported on Monday, was arrested and charged for the killing of his girlfriend, Ariana Jones. Today, Moody appeared before the Belmopan Magistrates Court, where he was arraigned on a single charge of murder. We spoke with his attorney, who shared some brief remarks on behalf of his client, who was remanded to prison. Reporter Andrea Palanca tells us more in the following story.
23-year-old Javon Moody was arraigned this morning at the Belmopan Magistrate Court for the murder of his girlfriend, 31-year-old Ariana Jones. No plea was taken, and he was remanded to prison until May of this year. Moody is being represented by attorney Earl Hamilton.
He was arraigned before the magistrate court in Belmopan this morning for one single count of murder, one single count of the charge of murder. No plea was taken as it's an indictable matter. So when there is matters that goes before the Supreme Court, no plea is taken at the magistrate court level, and he was read the charge, and he's to return back to court on the 13th of May, possibly to see if there is any disclosure in the matter.
According to Attorney Hamilton, Moody believes he's being framed and denies the charge, saying that he didn't kill Jones. Hamilton says that his client has been cooperating with the investigation. He says that Moody informed authorities when he found Jones injured inside her home, and so he was surprised to learn that he was being charged for her murder.
I was just recently retained. I had a brief conversation with my client. He gave me certain instructions, and I assume that the investigation is pretty young with regard to the police, but as it relates to my client, clearly he's denying the allegation. He's of the view that he has been framing the matter, and we wait our day in court to vindicate my client. From my instructions, he was the one who actually went to the police station to make a report that his girlfriend was in that state, that his girlfriend, he assumed, was killed or was lying on the floor in her room. So I wouldn't want to say that he's not cooperating with the police. He is the one that actually went and made the report, and surprisingly, he got charged.
According to police, they received a phone call about a body inside the house around 5:30 on Saturday morning. About half an hour after, a man, later identified as Javon Moody, visited the police station to make the same report. And it was during their investigation that they gathered evidence to charge Moody for the murder. According to police, Jones and Moody were inside her apartment in the Bully Tree Road area, reportedly having some drinks, when neighbors heard some screams about 1:30 that morning. And shortly after, her vehicle drove away from the scene. Police later found a vehicle in Moody's possession. Close friend Darieli Grouch says that the timeline of events doesn't paint an innocent picture.
He said that he faintly, vaguely heard something, a noise, but by the time he had quieted down to hear what it is, it had stopped, and that the vehicle drove off shortly after. So they maybe thought that it was her getting in her own vehicle and driving off. Like, nobody could ever expect and think that somebody else was in her vehicle driving it after this was done. And just for the record, if you guys see her address, the hospital is in eye view of her apartment room. Why would you drive all the way downtown instead of coming outside and screaming for help and going to the hospital that's right next door? You know, that is very strange to me. The hospital, we joke about the hospital being next door, so it's very strange that he drove downtown miles away to the police station instead of right next door to try and preserve her life.
Jones and Moody have been in a relationship for just a few months. Grouch says that she didn't witness any violence during the couple's short-lived romance, but Jones may have noticed a worrying streak in Moody's behavior, particularly when he was under the influence of alcohol.
I always thought if I had to notify her parents about anything, that it would have been an accident maybe, but never something like this, because she is such a welcoming person that you never expected somebody to turn on her like that. A physical violent, you know, you never expect it to be physical violence on her like that. She would have never fought with anybody, that's the truth.
Now that you've heard that her boyfriend is the person who has been arrested for her murder, I mean, how do you make sense of this?
Okay, well, since I tell you I know her that well, I know that this guy and her were not seeing each other for very long. It was not a public relationship. People don't know him as yet, but she did tell her mother.
Do you know if the accused has ever been violent towards her, or was it a violent, I don't know, dating or a relationship that they had?
No, but one of her friends that she spoke to in the States more recently than me said that she had mentioned something about him being mentally unstable, and especially when alcohol was involved.
Reporting for News 5, I'm Andrea Polanco.
The case of Corporal Eldon Arzu versus Commissioner of Police will proceed to trial. This morning, the matter was before the court, but was adjourned until May 12th in order for a new trial judge to be appointed. In November of last year, Nazira Miles, attorney for president of the Police Association Corporal Eldon Arzu, made a submission on her client's behalf to seek relief from sanctions, but that application was denied. What was accepted to be tried in court was whether or not the Commissioner of Police had authority to transfer Corporal Arzu. In May 2019, Corporal Arzu was ordered to report to work in Belmopan, where he had been transferred since January. As a result of his absence from the assignment, Arzu's salary had been frozen and would only be reactivated upon assumption of the desk job at the department's headquarters. Attorney Miles shared a brief comment with the media following today's court proceedings.
It had been previously before Justice Griffith on the 12th of November. At that time, she made an order for my client to file a document by 15 November. We did so the matter is now trial ready. As you know, she has left the jurisdiction, so it's just being called up in hope that a judge will be assigned soon for it to be set for trial.
So it goes back to court. When do you appear?
We come back to court on the 12th of May. At that time, we're hoping that a judge has already been set or assigned to the matter so that we can do what is pre-trial review means, prepare for trial.
Are you anticipating anything on that particular day?
Other than getting directions to file the trial bundle, I feel that everything is ready for us to go to trial.
On Monday, the parties involved in the PSU land claim were back before the courts. Last week, the Supreme Court ruled that Simplex Design Limited was the legitimate owner of the hilltop property and that the union's battle was with the Belmopan City Council, who sold the property to the private company based in Corozal. Now, Simplex Design filed a counterclaim because despite having issued an eviction notice, the union has refused to vacate the property. That was heard before Justice Courtney Abel. Attorney Steve Pereira explains the request for back rent owed by the union to Simplex and confirms that the parties are discussing a possible settlement.
We still have the remaining counterclaim, which we refer to as the ancillary claim, wherein we are seeking certain declarations from the court, specifically in respect to the termination of the lease agreement as well as to the possible eviction of the PSU.
That eviction was sent in December of last year. I understand that there is a counterclaim from your client of some $35,000. What portions of the law will you guys seek to have that remedied in the courts?
Yes, indeed. The notice was indeed sent back in December, terminating the lease sometime in January of this year. What we were requesting in that demand that we sent out was that the PSU pay for all the back rent that was owed pursuant to the lease. That's part of the claim. That forms part of the claim.
How far back was that, you know?
I don't recall the details of it right now, but what I can say also is the fact that all of the parties are currently in discussions right now with a possible opportunity to settle the matters the remaining matters that are currently before the court.
There was a shooting incident this morning in Belize City. According to reports, multiple shots were fired on Euphrates Avenue just after 10 o'clock. One report to News 5 is that someone opened fire at a moving vehicle, but no one was injured. Police arrived on the scene shortly thereafter and canvassed the area, but were told that no one was apprehended. After the break, an investigation into the anchoring of a vessel near Long Key. Officials from the Department of Environment, the Fisheries Department, the Belize Port Authority, and the Belize Audubon Society today traveled to the site of a recent grounding on an aquarium near Long Key in the Lighthouse Reef Atoll. On Sunday, a vessel, namely the Samadhi, which is registered in Cayman Island, had dropped its anchor on the reef, despite mooring pins in the area. While the extent of the damage is currently being determined, News 5 can confirm that correspondence has been issued to the owners about the investigation and pending charges. But News 5 has also confirmed that the pleasure craft is registered under the corporation Big Dog Marine Limited.
It's a 4-member team comprised of all the regulatory agencies that will be concerned with that incident.